Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. So in the previous video we have discussed everything regarding a structure, how to define one structure, how to create one array of a structure, user defined data type, how I can just create one normal variable of a structure data type. So everything has just discussed in the previous video. So today in this video we are going to learn about the concept of union. What is union? What is the difference in between a structure and a union, and why I should use union instead of a structure. So this is a union class, so suppose save it as union.c. So suppose before going to union I just want to use one structure variable. So in the previous video also there was a student structure. So here first include the header file has include stdio.h and then int main. Sorry, here it will be stdio.h and then here it will be int main, and here we need to define one structure. So here suppose there will be struct and struct. Suppose the name is same student, and here I will just keep the same value. Here suppose the value is here, okay, it will be id. Okay, so it will be integer, so int id, and there the second one will be marks, so it will be int marks. And then suppose here after main I will just here create one variable. So there we need to write struct then student. So this is the variable definition, and then we need to give the student name, suppose std1. Then I can just assign std1.id. I can just assign suppose 5 is the id, and then std1 dot here it will be marks, and if just suppose I am assigning the marks 90. So if I just print all those values, so I will write printf, and here we need to do these both are integers, so percentile d and percentile d. So first one is suppose id, so I will give id equals to, and then the second one is marks, so I will write marks equals to. Okay, so here this both will be std1.id, so std1.id, and second one will be std1 dot, and it will be marks, so marks. Okay, so if we compile this program, no error is there. If we run this program, now id is 5 and marks is 90 is printed over there. That is the concept of a structure. That means here I am just creating one structure user defined variable, and I am just assigning the value over there. So here I can just change the value. Suppose in the next line I am changing the value std1.marks, and I am changing the value to suppose 96. And if we compile and run this program, now it will also give the output as marks is 96, because I can just change the value of marks over there inside our structure student variable. This is one structure. But in union, what is happening? So if I just want to write one union, at that time instead of writing struct we need to write union, and here also at the time of variable definition we need to write union. So here what is the difference in between structure and union? So suppose when this was the structure, at that time a separate copy of id and marks was supposed to be created. Suppose here student is, suppose structure was there, so I will again make it struct. So struct, and here union it will also be struct. So if suppose instead of one student I just want to store the details of two students, so here the first one will be std, suppose this will be 1, and then it will also be 1, and I will just copy this both line and will paste it one more time for the second student, and here the student will be 2, and here the student will also be 2. So suppose here the id is suppose 6, or here marks is suppose 87. So I am just deleting this line. So here I have just stored the details of two students over there inside our std1 variable. But what is happening there, when I am just making one student, at that time inside our memory for this integer there will be 4 byte, and for this integer there will be 4 byte. That means inside our memory this 8 byte is reserved. That means when I am storing the value of one student, at that time inside our memory for this first student there will be, suppose it will take 8 byte of memory, and when I will store the details of second student, at that time it will also take 8 byte of more memory inside our computer memory. So what is happening when here I am just creating two different variable, the array of two variable, at that time the memory that is to be taken by this program is 8 plus 8, that is 16. So if instead of this 2 I just want to store the details of 5 students, so for each student there is 8 byte of memory is required. So for 5 student there will be 40 byte of memory will be required, because there is for one student there will be 8 byte, and there is total, if I will store the details of 5 students, so for each student there will be 8 bytes. So for 5 student there will be total 40 byte of memory. So for every student details, this ID and marks is totally different, and it is just creating inside our memory, and these both value are totally different. I can just change the ID of first student, I can just change the ID of second student, and this change will not affect the changing in another student detail. So for every student details, one separate copy of our this struct student is just creating inside our heap memory. But instead of this structure here, if we use the concept of union, at that time only one copy will be stored. So why, I will give you an example by which you can understand the concept. Suppose there is two books is there, so at the same time you can just read only one book. Suppose this is book 1, so I will just make this comment, so this is book 1 and here this is book 2. So these are two books. So suppose here inside, instead of this union integer id, and here I will just give, so suppose book 1, so there will be id of book 1, and there is suppose book 2, so the id of book 2 will be there. So here if we just make this with the concept of structure, at that time all the separate copy will be created, but in union only one copy will be created. So suppose here just I am just making one variable, so here suppose this is a variable book, and here inside this book variable here I am just making book dot book 1, and I am just giving the value 1 id, and here I will give book dot book 2, and I will just give the id 2 over there. So if I just print this both value, at that time suppose this is book 1 and here it will be percentile d, and instead of this marks this will be book 2, and here I will just delete all those, and here I will write book dot book 1 and it will be book dot book 2. If we compile and run this program, now you can see that both book ID has become 2. Here, what is the reason? Because I have just given book 1, the ID of book 1 is 1 and the ID of book 2 is 2. But if we compile and run the program, now you can see that both book becomes 2. Here the reason is, in union only one copy of book 1 and book 2 is created. So suppose the first time when I am just assigning book 1 equals to 1, at that time book 1 value becomes 1, and then when I am just assigning book 2 equals to 2, at that time it only consider the value of book 2, that is 2. That means the value of book 2 will be true, but the book 1 will be a garbage value. If we compile and run this program, now you can see that only the last value, that is book 2, is right, but the book 1 value is not right. So suppose here after this book 2, here I am just creating another, suppose float type of variable. So here suppose any kind of variable, so suppose I am giving the name a, and suppose here I am just making one character, and character I am giving the name, suppose this is one, suppose C, and any kind of name. So and here inside here, so book, and it will be like book dot a, and I am just assigning the any kind of float value, suppose 2.3 over there, and then book and character C, and here I can assign the character, suppose a is there. So if I just print all this, so here, so I will just delete this, so percentile d, then percentile a float, and then the last one is percentile c, because this is a character. So first one is book 1, the second one is book 2, The third one is like this is a equals to, and the last one is character c equals to. So here book dot book 1 book 2, so book dot a and book dot c. So if we just compile this program, okay, here we need to give dot operator, so book dot c, compile and run this program again. Now you can see that only this character value will be true. Now the character value is a, but all the other value can be true. That means those are not right. So here this is taking 4 byte, this is taking 4 byte. Suppose this is float, this is taking 8 byte of memory, and this is character, this is taking suppose 1 byte of memory. Here what is happening, only one memory just allocated for this whole student, and that memory is of 8 byte, because here 8 is the maximum one. Suppose I am giving you an example. Suppose you eat 3 times a day. So at the first you take a breakfast, then in the noon you take a lunch, and at the at the night you take dinner. You take 3 lunch. For 3 lunch you eat only in one particular pot. Suppose this is pot 1, suppose here this is pot 1, then there is pot 2, so this is pot 2, and then there is pot 3. So you have just suppose in breakfast you have suppose 5, you eat 5 things, and in lunch suppose in lunch you take something more, so suppose you take 8 things, and in suppose at the end in the night suppose you take 10 things. So this is suppose inside this 3 pot you eat 3 things, but here only one pot is necessary for all the time. Suppose in which pot you have eaten in your breakfast, in that pot you can just eat in your lunch, and in that pot you can just eat in the dinner portion. So only one pot is necessary. You can just buy 3 pot from the market, but you can eat also over there. But here this is the wastage of memory. That means you are just wasting more money in your pot. Only one pot is necessary for your 3 times eating. In your 3 times eating, only one pot is necessary. In only one pot you can eat all the 3 times. So if you just go in the market and buy one pot of this 10 size, at that time in that particular pot you can take 5 things and you can eat it. You can keep just 8 things and you can keep or eat in lunch, and you can keep 10 things and you can eat in lunch. So only one pot is necessary here. All the different 3 pot is not necessary. In case of structure, they are for all the variable, all the separate copy of all the variable is created. But here in case of union, only one maximum memory is just stored here. This 8 bit is the maximum memory, so inside our memory only 8 bit will be stored, and when the final time I will just assign any kind of value over there, only at the final position that value will be stored. What is happening in structure? In structure all the separate copy of all other variable is created, but in case of union only one copy is which is the maximum one, that is only created, and all the other value that are smaller than that maximum value or variable that are stored. So instead of assigning book 1.c in the last index, so I will just cut this and will paste it one more time. So if we compile and run this program, now book dot a value will be true all the time here, because this a value is just overwritten that memory. Suppose there is one memory is there, so this is suppose one memory is just this memory is just stored inside our memory. So this is suppose a memory inside our program. So when just I will assign 1 over there, that means inside our memory 1 will be there. Then this is will be overwritten by 2. Then this will be overwritten by a. Then that memory will be overwritten by 2.3. That means at the last index, what will be in the last position, that will be the final one. So here for that reason, this a value is the final value. So if we just cut this second line, so I am just making Ctrl X, and at the last position I will just give suppose book 2, at that time the value of book 2 will be the final one, so the value of book 2 is 2 and all other value will be false. So that's the reason we will use union when we just want to use our memory in a more consecutive way. At that time we will use the concept of union. So that's all for union. If you don't understand any kind of concept, you can comment out your problem. I will give my best to solve that problem. And if you are not my subscriber, please subscribe my channel to get all the notification and update related to our programming tutorial series. And here try to understand only one thing, that is which will be at the end, that value will be particularly observed or by the stored by inside our memory. So this is our memory, so this memory will be just for the first time this will be 1, second time this will be a, this will be overwritten, and at the last time when it will be 2, this will be overwritten by 2 only. This book 2 value will be like same, or book 2 value will be genuine, and all this value can be changed because there is only one memory, and this one memory is shared inside this 4 variable. So that is the main concept of our union.